A lot of you who watch my videos will know that I have a lot of scratch-built engines that I have made over the years. Ever since I created my first scratch-built model back in 2023, which was Neville, I have gotten a lot of requests to show how I make them. I was a little hesitant at first, mostly because I didn't really have the time to film myself making these models, but recently I finished a new one, and I thought I should show you the process. This is a custom model of Alfred I made back in 2020. I mean, it's pretty good, but we can make it better. This is the final result of the new and improved Alfred model. This isn't really a tutorial video, but feel free to follow along if you desire to make one of these for yourself. The materials you will need are cardboard, not sponsored, some scissors, some wooden dowels, masking tape, a glue gun, an X-Acto knife, and various other materials. Start off by grabbing a reference. I'd say Gordon. Now to start, we are going to make the running board. Make sure to measure it out so you have the right dimensions and such. Once you have the measurements from Gordon, make sure to draw out 2 or 3 of these on the cardboard. We'll be cutting them out and stacking them on top of each other. Also, don't forget to do the tender as well, but we'll come back to that. Now that the glue gun is nice and hot, we're ready to put the pieces together to make the running board. Once you've glued it together, cover it in masking tape and poke a little hole at the back where the chassis is going to go. Speaking of chassis, we're going to be making the same design I did for my scratch-built Arthur and Murdoch customs. For this, we'll need Thomas. Make sure to get the measurements for it. Then cut it out on cardboard. Once you have all the pieces, poke holes and glue it together, and then cover it in masking tape. I've also done the front chassis as well. Here's the part you've all been waiting for, the wheels. Now for the wheels, we'll be using a small Elmer's glue stick for it, because as it turns out, the bottom has the same diameter as the wheels on a Thomas Wooden Railway model. Now this is a tedious process, so bear with me. We'll be using the glue stick, holding it down, and using a pencil or a pen, tracing around it to create the round wheels. Now please note to trace out twice as much circles as there are wheels on the engine, because we'll be gluing 2 of them together to make 1 wheel. Once you've cut them all out, glue them together so they look something like this. Now the next step is to grab a thin strip of cardboard and split it up so we have this thin type of cardboard. I don't know what you'd call this. Once you've got that thin piece of cardboard, you're going to want to cut it into strips. Now that we have the strips, we're going to be gluing them around the wheels. This is to provide a little bit of protection and make them run just a little bit smoother. Here you can see me wrapping the thin strip of cardboard around the wheel. If the thin strip of cardboard is just a little bit too long around the wheel, simply take the scissors and cut it off until it's even. Now, if you guys are really enjoying these types of videos, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Here, you can see I'm carefully gluing the small cardboard strip around the wheel. Again, if the strip is too long, take the scissors and cut it off until it's perfectly even. Now, the strip might be a little too wide around the wheel, so take the scissors and carefully snip around the wheel, cutting off little pieces of the strip until the wheel is perfectly flat. When you finish the wheel, draw a dot in the middle where the axle is going to be. Now for the axle, I use a cut-up Q-tip. They aren't too big, but they aren't too small either. They're pretty much perfect. Now this is how you attach the axle to the wheel. Put a little bit of glue where the dot you drew is, and then connect the axle to the wheel like so. Now, this is footage from a different project, but you want to slide the axle through the little hole in the chassis, and then using the other wheel, glue it on like so, and you will have something like this. Now, using another cut-up Q-tip and a little piece of cardboard, we're going to be connecting the chassis to the running board. Connect it like so, and stick it through the hole, and glue the front one onto the running board. Make sure the back chassis has enough room to spin and enough clearance so it doesn't interfere with the front one. Now I've added these little circle pieces of cardboard onto the model. This is where the magnets are going to go. Now it's time for the cab. Make sure you get the measurements. Cut it out on cardboard. Glue it together, give it a roof, and glue it onto the running board. Then you're going to want to cover it in masking tape. Now I've cut up measurements for the tender as well, with a specific design to Alfred's tender. Once you glue it together, cover it in masking tape, and you will have a tender. Now this is optional, but I'm going to show you how to make the coal. I start out with putting a bunch of glue from the glue gun on top of the tender. Then, using something thin, like a pencil, a pen, or in this case, I'm using a cut-up Q-tip. Poke little holes in the glue. Keep doing this until the glue is dry. This will give us the nice coal texture. Like I said, this is optional and it is easier to just draw the coal on. I just wanted to do this for the sake of the video. Your final result should look like this. Now the tender is complete. Moving on to the boiler, we will be using wooden dowels to make it. I suggest getting some relatively the same size as Gordon's boiler. Once you have measurements on the boiler, draw a line where it's supposed to be cut. Once it's cut down to size, add it to the running board. And it's starting to look like a real engine now. Now, you all might be wondering, what about that little stopper that helps the chassis spin? Well, very simple. I cut a little slit in the boiler where the little stopper will sit. It fits perfectly with no issue. Once you've glued the boiler to the model and covered it in masking tape, it's time to make the funnel, the dome, and the wheel splashers. I made the funnel and the dome the same way I used to make the wheels, only smaller. Now it's time for the wheel splashers. Again, these were made the same way I used to make the wheels. I just cut them in half. Once they're added to the model and covered in masking tape, it is now complete. It's looking a little bare without paint right now, so we're going to go ahead and do that right now. It's time for the painting process. These are all the colors we will be using, all of which are from Apple Barrel. The painting process will go as follows. We will be using green to paint the boiler, the cab, the running board, the wheels, and the tender. Then using some black, we will paint the chassis, the smoke box, and the coal. We will also be using black for little details. Using white, we will do the stripes on the boiler and the lining. Finally, we will be using some gray to do the handrail. Also, to make sure that the green isn't too dark, we will be mixing it with a lighter green to get that nice apple green kind of color. After about 3 coats of the mixture of green, this is what the model looks like. Now, it's time to move on to the black paint. Afterwards, it looks like this. Man, it's really starting to come together, isn't it? I also use black for the detail on the running board and his windows. Now using the white paint, I add lining on the wheel splashers, on the cab, outlining his windows, and finally, stripes on the boiler. Not to mention the lining on his tender too. Don't forget about that. Now finally, the handrail. Now Alfred has a very unique handrail. It seems to go across his boiler and up and over his smoke box. So that's how I painted it. And man, I gotta say, it looks phenomenal already. Now the next step is to print out faces, lettering, and numbers. Now you can use any lettering you want. However, I will be using the NWR for his tender and 98462 for his number. Once they're printed, cut them out and add them to the tender and cab. And finally, add a face. And the final step is to add magnets. I will be using 1 centimeter wide magnets. You can find these on Amazon or perhaps just at a local store. And once you glue the magnets on, the model is complete. I'm very happy with how this turned out, and I think you guys will be too. If this video helped you out in any way, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Now before I go, I just want to announce that I am now on Patreon. If you join this page, you can get exclusive perks and access to exclusive content. Link will be in the description. And with that being said, this is Big City Studios saying thank you for watching and have a good day.